Okay. Welcome to my Malazan studies. We're talking about Deadhouse Gates. I just finished it 5 minutes ago. It's outrageously good. It's incredible. It's extremely brutal. It's really extreme, is possibly the best word to use here. It's an extreme book. It's a book about fatalism and traps. It's a book about twin loyalties. It's a book about screaming gods. I would definitely say that I loved Deadhouse Gates. I thought it was very exciting. I thought the structure was very interesting. I thought the philosophy was very confrontational. The psychology of this book is extremely provocative, extraordinarily moving, right, and complex. I liked most of the characters very much. Of course, just like with Gardens of the Moon, there's one character who I just became obsessed with. I thought Gardens of the Moon was just perfect in every single way, and I'm still obsessed with this one. This might be the best book I will ever read. Felisin is what I will take away from this book. Felisin's war with herself, made demonically amplified outward. Her interior battles made satanically exterior. Felisin Paran. Maybe all of the Parans are brats. All right, I liked Ganoit's Paran in the first book, Gardens of the Moon, a lot, but I called him a brat in the way that he handled a lack of personal freedom. And while autonomy is a theme that's carried over to this book, I don't think it's the primary theme. I think the primary theme of this book at first feels like it's about rebirth, and then you're corrected by Hiboric, right? Felisin's traveling companion. This isn't a book about being reborn. It's a book about being remade. The fantasy genre being remade, the Malazan series being remade at book 2, characters being remade, and that's where we get fascinating with Felisin Paran. Felisin Paran navigates Deadhouse Gates through a whirlwind of frozen memories of pathos. In her own words, you cannot be remade until you are broken. Felisin, or Shaik, is the true cipher of this entire book. It's about orphaned souls. Once your archetype has been deconstructed into dust, you must become something new, something remade. An abomination of ascendancy, an abomination of femininity, an abomination of sisterhood, an abomination of the fantasy genre. Something new, yet completely ancient. The twin loyalties of Felisin Paran. The twin demons, the twin angels. Felisin Paran, noble-born brat of Unta, whore of the mining pit, the chosen one, remade, the leader of the apocalypse, her body, its very trumpet. Dear sister, look what you have made. Through Felisin, we can see that Deadhouse Gates is a book about how mortals and gods are elemental forces in perpetual opposition, both pieces of the same game board. And I think I love her. I think she's wonderful. I think it's one of the most confrontational characters I've ever read in fantasy, right? I think it's one of the most fascinating characters I've ever read about. She frightens me. I find her exhilarating to be around, okay? My overall thoughts of Deadhouse Gates is that it's great and I love it. It's a wonderful part 2. I can't help but compare it to Gardens of the Moon, considering it's a direct continuation of it. And Gardens of the Moon, I think, will just be very special to me forever. I don't really think anything can compare to this book. I connected with Lauren a lot. I don't want to just go on and on about me, but Lauren's struggles with being both lovelorn, being forlorn, Lauren's obvious depression, the carelessness with her own life, what I believe is her suicidality. I believe that Lauren was suicidal. I believe that she wanted to die, and I believe that she was traumatized. And I found her just exhilarating, mad sexy, and tragic I loved Lorne because I saw a lot of myself in her, and I desired her quite a bit. So I don't think anything will compare to Gardens of the Moon. Lorne was that meaningful to me. That said, Deadhouse Gates is one of the best fantasy books I've ever read as well. So it's just not God tier, I guess. But let's have some fun. Let's try to get a deep understanding of Felisin Paran. It's interesting that Stephen Erickson uses the Parans, apparently, so far, as a means to deconstruct the chosen one archetype, because he did that with her brother in the first book, and now we're doing it again here. Only I think that it's I think it's complicated with Felisin. There was a ironic, morbid, sardonic part of me that was reading Deadhouse Gates thinking, good for her. You know what? I like this demonic hero's journey for her. I like it for her. Like, whatever. I think this brat should get to feel like a god. Sure, why not? But obviously, I think it's more like a villain's journey. I think she's extremely complex and confrontational, and a wonderful character to be around. Holy shit, I didn't know that fantasy could have characters like this. I love her to death. And we're going to not get any spoilers. So once again, in the comments, don't talk about anything that happens after Deadhouse Gates. I'm about to start Memories of Ice. And I don't want to be spoiled, especially not about Felisin. And I don't want anyone clicking on this video who may have only read the first 2 books to be spoiled about anything either. So let's keep it contained to Deadhouse Gates. I know I'm playing with fire here, but I'm going to try my best to not get any spoilers from this page. I like doing the studies this way. I read a little bit of the wiki, and then I share my thoughts about it. Deadhouse Gates. In 1162 BS, Felisin was arrested as a noble during the Cull. In 1163 BS, the 14-year-old girl was sent to the Ototoro mines on 7 cities by her sister Tavor, the adjunct, as a demonstration of House Paran's loyalty to Empress Lysine. The house had become vulnerable, not least because Ganoas Paran had become a renegade under Dujek One-Arm. Gotta say, this opening, holy fuck, the opening of Deadhouse Gates, the prologue was stunning, and like he really lays out the brutality right there, and you really get a sense of, this is going to be a really challenging Malazan novel, and I mean challenging in that it's a torturous one. We're dealing with tortured, broken, orphaned souls here, all of them, every one of them, and that opening was just so gothic, so disturbing. And so confrontational. I like books that can be confrontational and be very intellectual at the same time. And Deadhouse Gates is definitely that. As the prisoners were gathered to be paraded past the crowds to the slave ships, Felisin met fellow prisoners Haboric, Ghost Hands, and Bauden. And I loved these two. I love this fellowship that existed between these 3 hapless fucking adventurers, right? Like, I liked Haboric a lot, because I want to root for Felisin. I want Felisin to actually be legitimately saved, legitimately like remade, right, into something that's that's truly heroic, that's truly worth championing. And I think that Haboric wanted the same thing. Bauden was like almost contractually obligated to protect her, but I think he was also obviously secretly in love with her. And I think both men were, but Haboric in more of a father-daughter way. Haboric near the end of this book is it's heartbreaking reading his stuff because of how he looks at Felisin now, or Shaik. He's heartbroken about it. And I think that I found myself like in Haboric's shoes, just wishing things could be different. But as a reader, as someone who analyzes this stuff, I'm extremely happy that Felisin's story, it was really surprising to me. It was really shocking. I did not think that this noble-born brat turned whore was going to be basically ascending to godhood, or at least like, the leader of the fucking apocalypse. I did not think this was going to happen. I was thrilled. But as someone who really appreciates Felisin's humanity and the war within herself over it, I knew that it was lost. And I know that this could only lead to horror and possible holocaust, not only of others, but of herself, of her soul, of all souls even. I'm very worried about what Felisin is capable of. Bodden protected her from the worst of the jeering mob's violence. By the time they arrived at Skull Cup, Felisin had already realized her only asset was her body, which she sold to the guards in return for more food for herself and her two companions. And of course, why not? Through Felisin, we are seeing what happens to nobility when it's radicalized by extreme circumstances. We're seeing what happens to just normal fucking teenagers who are radicalized by a psychotic regime. Like, we're seeing what happens when teenagers are radicalized. Of course, they're going to use their bodies. The only thing that she had, and she kept Haborik alive. But by sleeping with Benneth, she was able to get Haborik like an easier job to do, because they were fucking slaves, right? Like, what else are you going to... I'm not going to shame her for doing that, especially when I see her entire journey here as what happens when you take your traditional teenage chosen one archetype and force them into the world of Malazan. They're radicalized by the deconstructions of the book. So, like, she's radicalized into essentially becoming Shaik, becoming the leader of the apocalypse, the ultimate seer, an extraordinarily powerful force, obsessed with vengeance, obsessed with wanting to kill her older sister for doing this to her, for sending her there. Basically, I see her as selling her body as everything that happens to her I see as like further radicalization, not just of her body but of her soul. And that's what's happening. That's Felisin's war. Felisin's war is for her soul, and she loses that war, or that war is remade into something far more troubling. Far more deceptive, far more vicious. Felisin did like the only things she could do in this universe. She was radicalized by by everything around her. In the mining camps, Felisin attached herself to Benneth, the local crime lord, for protection and to gain favors. For example, getting Haborik transferred to lighter duties, which probably saved his life. She became addicted to Durhang and alcohol, spending her days in a haze to dull the pain. A guard in the camp, Pella, tried to aid Felisin. And it's weird that Erikson gives us all of these different, like, what ifs and maybes, or like, oh, I know where this is going. Pella's going to be really nice to her. They're going to like go off and have this romantic thing. She's going to become like a greater, better, more womanly kind of mature person, a hero. But of course it doesn't happen. Of course, it doesn't happen at all. Deadhouse Gates, and probably Malazan as a whole, is very subversive, is very shocking, very surprising. And for all of that, it's very powerful, very impactful, very psychological. Pella tried to aid Felisin, but in her stupor, she missed his hints. I love that part where she's like, I could be yours tonight, just ask, or whatever. Like, Erikson really wrote about the radicalization of this young girl so well, and about her downward spiral with such believability, honestly. Like, you could reach out and touch Felisin at these parts. Like she seemed very real. She seemed like someone that you could see at the bar right now. Like, she seemed extremely real. I felt her spiral just on such a deep level. Like, it was beautifully, remarkably done. Her only other outlet was her hatred for the sister responsible for her condition and daydreams of revenge. And I love that shit. I love the battle between sisters. I love that her sister's a new adjunct. But that said, dude, I love that setup. I can't wait for that confrontation. I am here for it. Oh my God, Felisin's only going to get more and more fascinating. I've never really seen a character like this. I can't say I love her. I love adjunct Lorne. Adjunct Lorne is wifey. She's my wife. Felisin scares me. She's scary, but she's incredibly fascinating, and certainly the best character in this book, the standout for me personally. When the camp's native guards revolted as part of the Whirlwind Uprising, Haboric and Bodden arranged the trio's escape into the desert. It was on this journey that she discovered that Bodden was a Talon, sent by her sister to protect her, who had intended to remove her from Skullcup as soon as possible. And then you get a bit of complications with the Vengeance, but I'm still with Felisin. Fuck you, Tavor. It is her fault that she went down this complete fucking spiral. Felisin must have been a little bit troubled, a bit of a fucking brat before any of this fallout happened. Doesn't matter that you sent someone to protect her. No one could protect her from herself. She's her own worst enemy, but in the end, she's her savior. She becomes Shaik. Right? So like all of her flaws end up granting her some kind of quasi-divinity. Like her entire story is about the destruction of self, about warring over your own soul, about the apocalypse of her own spirit. And then she ends up being the leader of the apocalypse. She brings the apocalypse of self outside of her guts, outside of her heart, and now she's spitting it out into the world in a flamethrower type of way, in a flamethrower-like way, as if by some sort of psychological flamethrower coming out of her mouth. Like the apocalypse she felt within her is now, I think, engulfing Raraku. They had remained in the camp for so long only because, in Bodden's words, you can't pull out a person who don't want to go. Bodden also revealed that he had murdered Benneth during their escape. I don't know how much sympathy I want to have for Bodden. I mean, he knew that Felisin was wanting to kill him and was going to sleep with him in order to trick him into being unaware so she could jab a dagger into his fucking head. And he still slept with her knowing about that. Like he just wanted her. He just wanted her. You can't pull out a person who don't want to go. Yeah, you can. You're a fucking like tyrant giant guy. Like you could pull her out. You did. You fucking did. She didn't want to go. The part of the book that creeped me out just on like a guttural level was when they were escaping, and it was her and Haboric, and the blood flies got to her. Oh, I could feel that shit, bro. Oh, that was fucked up. And talking about like all like how fucked up she looked afterwards. I'm like, oh, that's gross as fuck. Oh, that's gross. I live in Florida. There's too many insects. I didn't like it. That made my skin crawl. I don't want to come down too hard on Bodden. I think he's a really interesting character. I just think he's incredibly flawed, and it doesn't really have like a good emotional awareness about him. I think that by sleeping with her at that point, you weren't going to make her any better. Like, did you want her to get better? Then don't entertain, don't fall to her feminine wiles, right? Like, don't entertain her, apocalyptic whims, right? Like, just don't do it. Haboric didn't. There's a weird part of the book where Haboric's admiring her figure as well, but like turns away really quick because he corrects himself. That's what you should do, Bodden. Whatever. This is so strange. Felisin's that character that I'm conflicted about because I love her so much, but I do view her story as kind of an antagonistic one. Yet it's one that I think is full of irony and complexities. So I feel compelled to defend her. You know, I feel compelled to defend this character who does frighten me and who I do think is on a very devastating path. I mean, of course she is. She's leading the fucking armies of the apocalypse. But I think that that's like so beautiful, and I think it's a massive amplification of the apocalypse that happened within her soul, from all the familial betrayals to realizing how men truly are, realizing that you are nothing but meat, nothing but something to not only objectify but to defile for men, to truly understand. I think that like prostitutes have a far deeper understanding of the like depravities of men than anyone anyone else, right? And I think they could tell terrifying stories. And I think that her learning these lessons at a very young age, it absolutely warped her mind. That's why I say she was radicalized by being abused by the Empire. And now she hates the Empire, but hates her sister even more. So her hatred of Empire isn't political simply. It's more than personal. It's blood. Even after being freed from the mines, Felisin remained resentful and hardened from her experiences and continued to vow vengeance for her treatment against Tavor and now Bauden. She and her companions were rescued from the desert shore by Culp and the crew of the Rypath. I love Gessler and Stormy and Truth. Okay, they're awesome. I love when they come back from that warren and shit, and their boats looks like a fucking burnt up satanic ghost ship. They're all like bronzed now. Everyone who came back from there is bronzed, nearly ascended, right? And that's the same with I think Felisin, Boric, and I guess Bauden as well. But they arrived separately, and I loved when Gessler was giving the Wiccans shit. So Coltane punched him in the nose, and that's when you realize that both of them are way more than they appear. But I love the idea of giving ascendancy like to these three weird cult followers in the Marines. That's really fun to me, and I think they're really enjoyable, really entertaining guys. But after and I should say Coltane, like I found the historian Duiker's narrative in this. It was interesting. It was okay. It was the one I enjoyed the least. And Coltane was the primary feature of his narrative. But that said, I thought Coltane was a fascinating guy. I almost wish those parts were actually told from his perspective. I understand we have to keep our distance with a character like Coltane so he can remain a sort of cipher, something sort of mysterious. And I understand that's integral to the structure of the book. I wish there was more Coltane in that. There was too much of Duiker, and I don't think that Duiker had a very fascinating psychology. Like, I guess it's fun to investigate the historian's reading of the present. Right, but not as fun to do for hundreds of pages. I think that characters like Felisin are just way more interesting. The apocalypse of the soul, the radicalization of youth, and finally becoming Shaik, reborn. But after a disastrous trip through the Warrens, they were left in the holy desert of Raraku. Felisin drove away Bauden and made the lives of Culp and Haboric miserable. Good, fuck. See, I can't help but defend her, even though she made their lives very miserable. But still, fuck those guys. Like, this is a kid fucking pissed off and shit, radicalized, and psychotic at that point. At that point, she's losing her mind, because I think we're seeing Felisin, this teenage girl, experience a holocaust of her soul through it. And this is like she's in the death throes within her soul at this point. Is very close to when she is remade. When the divers Grylan slew Culp. Yeah, with all the rats and shit, that was unexpected. That was crazy. Bauden reappeared, revealing that he had not given up his charge. He saved the lives of Felisin and Haboric at the cost of his own, and died in a repentant Felisin's arm. Very good part. Very, very good part. That's what makes Felisin beautiful, because, like, I don't mean to describe her as this completely sociopathic character, because she's not. Because you get this idea of the performative nature of her, which is fine, which is great, which is to be expected. There's a performative nature not only within all teenagers, but especially within the nobility itself. And I think that, like, most of her anger was performative. Not that she didn't feel it, but that she wasn't actually confronting what was provoking those homicidal urges in the first place. But like all teenagers, like all people of upper classes, there's a bit of performance in her aggression. And when Bauden died, we saw like the true, it's that battle of soul, because we saw the tenderness of her spirit beneath that. Right? We saw it. We saw it and we wanted more of it. We wanted to cherish it. We wanted that to be a turning point for her, and it wasn't. Felisin and Haborik continued on, stumbling upon Leoman and Toblakai, who guarded the book of Dryjina and the corpse of Shaik. Felisin was, see, that like part blew my fucking mind, right? Because it set up like it's gonna be Apsalar and her father. And they even like, and they see a young woman helping an old man come close to them, and I'm like, all right, so Apsalar is gonna go for this, gonna really do this thing, okay. And then when it's revealed that it's these two fucking morons, these two misfits, it's fucking this prostitute and this raving lunatic ex-priest, like that was awesome to me. I'm like, oh my god, no, Felisin's gonna do this. Felisin's gonna take this major role in the apocalypse. Oh my god. Like, yeah, I wish you could have seen my face reading that part. I was so excited for what the future held. See, every time I think I have Malazan predicted, obviously I don't. And I love just how shocking and surprising this book can be. Felisin was proclaimed Shaik reborn by Leoman and began receiving preternatural knowledge from the whirlwind goddess. They traveled to the oasis at the heart of Raraku, where she took command of the whirlwind and demanded the obedience of the high mages Bidithal, Febril, and Lorik. Rather than opening the book, she struck a deal with the whirlwind goddess, unleashing a towering sandstorm, visible from hundreds of leagues away. Yeah, when she's like, Haborik, you haven't figured out what the whirlwind is yet? It's not going to take us months to get to Dom. It's not going to take us months to get to Corbolo Dom. This is a Warren. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Hell yeah. Whilst in Raraku, she adopted an orphan and named her Felisin. Ooh, poetry. Oh, beautiful. That's the climax of her story. She's been remade into something greater, ascended into something more. Yet just like the whirlwind goddess, allowed Felisin to retain a little bit of autonomy within this remade Shaik. There is now a remade Felisin. And I think that speaks volumes of the tenderness that might continue to exist within her soul, her spirit. Maybe not maternal qualities, but more importantly to her character, sisterly ones. Then she recalled Corbolo Dom and his army back from Erin, even as her sister Tavor arrived with an army to deliver the Malazan Empire's vengeance. Ah! And then it ends there. I found her story to be the most remarkably attuned to where my psychology has always been fixed. You cannot be remade unless you are first broken. Those are Felisin's words. So what do we see in Deadhouse Gates? We see her break entirely. We see her become entirely broken. Most of this book is difficult with Felisin. People who are dying, people who are experiencing apocalypse within their own spirit, they don't go quietly. They get really mad and they lash out. Most of this book is about a broken Felisin, her breaking entirely. And it ends with her being remade into something divine, into something essential, into something elemental, into something that could oppose not just her sister, but empire entirely. And not simply empire, but all life, reality. She is the apocalypse. Dear sister, look at what you have made. Felisin was the character that kept me glued to these pages, right? When she was here, when it was one of her chapters or someone connected directly to her, I could not stop reading. And then when it was someone else, when it was even Fiddler, when it was Mappo or Acarium, I was like, gotta read these to get back to Felisin. If there's one true criticism I have of this book, unlike Gardens of the Moon, sure, Lauren was my favorite character, but I enjoyed every character here. Like I loved Lauren's my favorite character, but I think my favorite scene in this book in Gardens of the Moon is when Crocus returns everything he stole from the Diarls back to Chalice, and she interrogates him, and it's super fucking cute and full of this adolescent energy that's like full of chemistry and had a real rom-com feel that I really appreciated. So even though I really love Lauren, some of my favorite parts of this book don't involve her. I loved everybody's perspective here, and I thought it made for a very nice magical clusterfuck in the finale. Loved it. With Deadhouse Gates, it does feel a little unbalanced for me. I really found myself liking Felisin, and I liked being around Fiddler because I wanted to know what Apslar and Crocus were doing. I liked Mappo and Icarium a bit. They were fun to engage with. I like their stories a lot too. But it's just that Felisin was the one who I wish, a part of me wishes she wasn't as interesting as she was because the other characters suffered a little bit on account of it. Although I think Talum's story was also had its moments where like that was kind of almost stealing the spotlight for me. I liked a lot of what he did, especially when he was going through the Imperial Warren with Manala and Apt. Like Apt is ridiculous. What the fuck? The Aptorian demon with the crazy fucking like toddler on his back. What are we doing? That's scary. That's insane. But yeah, dude, Deadhouse Gates is brutal. And I think the theme is about being remade. And I think that as a reader, like you're supposed to mistake the theme for rebirth. And then it becomes not rebirth, but remade. And we're talking not just in the loudest possible way, which is like Felisin even vocalizes this theme when she's remade into the Sha'ik Reborn. But I think that like character motivations are remade. I think that the frameworks of Malazan are remade, and the remakes of epic fantasy as a whole structure are remade, like through Deadhouse Gates. And we're dealing with kind of different motifs, different signifiers, different motivations. I think that Deadhouse Gates is kind of about remaking fantasy as a whole. But I like getting more on a character level, and I think that every character in here experiences some sort of reshaping of their soul, of the inner components that make up who they are. I think that every character is challenged in some pretty brutal ways. Like I want to say this is very brutal. This is like if death metal were a book, but very smart death metal were a book, right? Like this is this really packs a punch. Melodic death metal then. Think At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. Hell yeah. Yeah. I was listening to Death Symbolic when I was reading some of this, and it fit. It fit really well. And so does Slaughter of the Soul by At the Gates. It's very death metal feeling. In tone, in spirit, in brutality. Like I've shared some of my misgivings about the Duiker parts, but man, does Erikson make you feel like you're within that military campaign. All this carnage. Erikson really makes you feel it, right? And that's why I think a character like Felisin is so much fun, because he really makes you feel all of her broken pieces. She's shattering throughout this entire book until she's put together in a way that the reader could never truly have imagined at first. Even in the prologue where she first meets Haborik and Bauden, and that weird priest comes over and like she sees that he's actually made up of all of these strange blood flies. Like that's telling of where they're going. A secret for you. Well, that wasn't very nice. I love Haborik's dark sense of humor. He's actually a pretty funny character overall, and heartbreaking too. But the prologue lays down some brutal statements with some kind of mysterious promises of things aren't quite as they seem, or things would be reshaped into other things demonically. And I think that apocalyptically, the rest of Deadhouse Gates makes good on that promise, but especially through Felisin Paran. What an amazing character. She's just a beauty. So far as fantasy characters goes, like she's one of the most beautiful ones you'll ever come across, and I can't wait to see what happens to her. I can't wait to continue with Felisin. Like she's mind blowing. She really is, and she is so conflicted and complex, and confronts the reader in so many different ways. I found her so extremely confrontational, and like the entire time, I'm just wanting to comfort her. And then you realize as a reader that you're trying to remake her as well. If Malazan is a book that does have a devotion to exploring autonomy, then the characters also have to be struggling for autonomy from the reader. It's not up to me to remake this character, even in my own imagination. Let her shatter, and she will rise stronger than you or me or even the author could ever imagine. Felisin Paran, Shaik Reborn. Now that is the darkest and most twisted hero's journey that I've ever seen. I worry about her. I was worrying about her through this whole book. Yeah. Yeah, she really had me like in the palm of her hand. Deadhouse Gates was great. Yeah, man. It's fucking fantastic. It was really good. It was really good. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach, and I'm really happy that I'm so obsessed with Malazan.